So, John, why do we need a third host or for a witness? What's the real purpose behind that for vSAN?
So this is at its core. The short answer is something called cap theorem. The long answer is why do you see clustered systems that have some type of additional what's called a fencing mechanism or some type of additional quorum system? And there's different ways this has been done. Sometimes this is done with a share. Sometimes it's done with a stateful application. Sometimes people did it with LUNs before, but this is not a new construct. And there are clustering systems that have existed where you just had two systems and they talk to each other. But why did we go to that third system? Well, the reality is if you want to avoid a situation known as split brain, this is where you have both copies of a clustered system go active without awareness of each other, start acknowledging transactions, and potentially basically corrupting data. You need something that basically holds down and says, hey, you can't activate HA, you can't activate that second copy. We don't want a shadow VM running and acknowledging transactions. So this is why we need that third host or that witness. Now, that said, we can come very close to cheating cap theorem. So let's talk very quickly about what's been improved in 7 update 3. We now have the ability to shift kind of those votes that are used for establishing quorum. Pete, you probably have a fancier term for this.
I think how about adaptive quorum control?
Yeah, I like that. Let's
right.
choose that. Let's choose that. Ship it. So what this means is if I have a failure, so let's say I have my 2 hosts and I have my witness that's providing quorum above it. If one of these hosts failed, we now only have one host that has good copy or copies, if we're doing read inside the host now also, of data. So at this point, if the witness fails, the witness and the other host, they both have acknowledged the other host is dead to us. It's done. At this point, if the witness fails, historically, you would have gone offline because that remaining host would only hold one of the 3 votes. Well, instead, with this new behavior, if the witness and one of the hosts have both decided that the other host is dead and gone and out of synchronization, the witness can basically say, you know what, I'm really not that useful here. Here's my votes. And so at this point, the host itself will have quorum on its own, and a subsequent failure of that witness would allow you to still remain active. And then in that case, you could still have, because there's 3 disk groups in the host and you have a witness component inside the host, you could have one of those disk groups even go offline. So you could have host failure, witness failure, disk group failure. The key thing is they can't all happen at the same time. There needs to be time to reconcile and shift those votes over for this process to work. So this is our attempt at being clever and cheating cap theorem and doing so in an automated fashion that doesn't require any manual failover.
Right. No, that it certainly sounds a little bit on the magical side in terms of what it has to do in order to maintain the availability. And I think it's worth noting too, is why we choose to have that witness in the first place is so that you don't have to do this stuff on a manual basis. When you think about we are determining the availability on a per object basis. Well, think about how many dials you would have to turn if that was something that you had to manually manage. And so having that witness, it seems like, really in an automated fashion is the best way to approach this notion of availability in a fully distributed storage system.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a lot easier. And one other thing just to remember is that witness host, it doesn't have to be lonely. It could actually be providing potentially witness services to multiple 2-node clusters, not stretch clusters, but multiple 2-node clusters. So that's another great operational efficiency. So I know some of you may have looked at 2-node a long time ago and said this makes some compromises that, I'd rather just throw more hardware at and work around. I'd encourage everyone to look at this again for the nested RAID protection levels, the additional survivability, in terms of handling, staggered failures, as well as also just the cost efficiency of direct connect.